Good day and welcome, America and beyond. Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. Patriotism in action, putting America first and New World Order dead last. Seeker of the truth, a free thinker, but also a rational thinker. Now, this is a day for many of remembrance, reflection, and even reverence as it relates to 9/11, the victims, the aftermath. And I want to say something in reflection of those things already stated, and that is, I'm a sane and rational person. Although some have questioned that as it relates to my challenges of the status quo, the establishment, the military-industrial complex, and beyond, the power elite, the global elitists, the unseen hand, etc., etc. I'm an originator and an innovator as it relates to Patriot Talk Radio. And back in the times of the American Liberty Association, or following into the radio world with America's Town Forum, I was referred to as the conspiracy radio host. No, not the guy with the bullhorn. And no, the bullhorn bully in Austin, Texas. He's the king of paranoia porn. Everything I say, I do the best I can to back it up, because I'm a seeker of the truth, a teller of the truth, and traffic only in the truth to the best of my ability. And when I hear folks state some of the craziest, some of the most bizarre things, I don't know if it's for just, shock and awe. And most people, it's almost an addiction, similar to heroin, in the sense that they crave more. Sort of like sex fiends that they can't be satisfied with certain things. They have to go beyond the pale. Always seeking, just like the bungee jumpers, the skydivers, the roller coaster riders. And I'm not saying all of the folks, but there's many that they're adrenaline junkies. And they cannot find a level of contentment or satisfaction. And that goes with the conspiracy genre. You have many in the conspiracy genre that they have to keep topping things. They're not satisfied with simply the truth or the attainability of that truth. Sometimes the truth can be blasé. It can be benign. And sometimes it is conspiratorial, it is ominous, it is heinous, it is vile, it is vicious. So let me state a few things that I know. And there's many things I don't know. And I am not an expert in the truther movement, 9/11. I've not researched it thoroughly. I don't know enough to do this segment or this program justice. But I do want to share with you my ideas and my thoughts and my sentiments. And this is all coming from, my stream of consciousness. Now, yes, I did watch certain programs on this day of 9/11, 2011. And I was very touched by some of the programs. But when I hear people, and we're going to get to the conspiracy itself, the collaborators and those that I believe were co-signers of this devastation and decimation. Okay, I believe that there was a collaborative effort that went beyond folks that follow Osama bin Laden or radical Islam. But we do know that for a fact that 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi Arabians, okay? Which the Bush family, the Bush crime family, has had, very intimate ties, politically, financially, and New World Order wise. We know that there were planes. There is enough eyewitnesses in metropolitan downtown New York City There's cameras, there was video footage. I mean, there's enough evidence on file that we know that there were airplanes involved. We know there were hijackers. We know that there were people that died. We know family members that know and have talked about, and they even have the remains. Talk about sacrilegious and saying that nobody died, or very few people died, or that there were no planes, there were no hijackers, because they want a juicier conspiracy. Now, I think the Pentagon issue and what happened there is a little more mysterious. But I think that any rational person would have to say, yes, they were two planes. Yes, they hit the towers. But we're going to part ways with the status quo after those facts. Meaning, you have over 700 architects and engineers for 9/11 truth, Richard Gage among them, that have major questions as to how structurally this could have happened solely by those planes hitting the tower. I think there's enough evidence to support the fact that there were other means and mechanisms at work here. Okay? Now, some are saying in 2011 that there was kind of this kind of scalar kind of energy waves that may have been employed. There's been much talk of the thermal elements, and the chemical compounds that were administered to thermite, they call it. I don't know that much about it. And you would have to have top clearance to be able to get in there and do those things. We do know that there was some incredible horse trading on Wall Street. Okay. We also know, I think it was Silverstein, I believe was the name, this real estate mogul that bought the buildings. My understanding is just for the face value, for the dollar, just for $1, because the city didn't want to deal with the asbestos and all these other things. Remember, there was a World Trade Center bombing prior to this one on September the 11th on 2001. Remember 1993? So there was a lot of motivations for having this demolition. Insurance policies. We also, there was quite a bit of evidence, seemingly, that there was gold under the World Trade Center, and that there was a lot of movement the night prior to move things out. So I believe that there was kind of a collaborating and in collusion, in cahoots kind of relationship between the military-industrial complex, or now you could even say the national security, homeland security complex. So there were vested interests in an event that could be masterminded. And this could not have been these hapless wanders that came in and learned how to fly planes on their own, although there's quite a bit of evidence that the FBI and other law enforcement agencies were more than curious about these folks and what they were doing, and were monitoring to some degree their activities. So out of respect, a reverence for those that passed, meaning passed away, I have to say that I do not buy into the fact that your loved ones that are deceased, that are departed, did not die a terrible, horrible, horrific death at the hands of radical Islam, and I would say the intelligence agencies. Some might even want to say the rogue aspects of those intelligence agencies. And when I say intelligence agencies, we're talking about British secret intelligence. We're talking M6. We're talking about the Israeli Mossad. And just because I said Silverstein, I'm not calling this a Jewish plot or conspiracy. I'm saying it's a New World Order plot and conspiracy in conjunction with, in cahoots with, radical Islam. And so they'll use any brokered or mercenary crew. And that's the way they've always operated. They generally physically are not going to do it themselves. They're going to find, whether it's mind-controlled folks, whether it's mercenaries, or just New World Order missionaries, hired guns, okay? So there's some terms, some expressions that come to mind as it relates to what I have experienced in terms of my feelings and it's not just my intellect, but it's also my emotions, it's my spirit, my psyche. Every aspect of my being was affected by this. And I think every American to some degree has been traumatized by this. There's no question. But I do want to say that some words that come to mind are carnage countered by courage. We're talking about the ruins, and then we had revenge on our minds. We had the horrific and the heroic. We have the travails, and we also have the tribute. We have the rubble, and we have the remembrance. We have the remains and the rubble. But also, we're in a state of renewal. We have the betrayal, and we also have the bravery. We have a very somber moment, but that somber moment came out of sadistic tendencies as it related to NWO, New World Order, the global elitist, these intelligence agencies with Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabia, and radical Islam. Okay, so these are some of the things I wanted to raise. Now, again, I think that we've raised enough questions in the Patriot, Freedom, Constitutional Truth movement. They have not been adequately addressed, and this movement is not going to go away. Sort of like people that, which actually there is a major crossover of those that follow the JFK assassination cover-up and conspiracy, as well as other conspiracies, whether it's the Federal Reserve System and this banking monstrosity that has the financial stranglehold over us. And so this is not going to go away. Even if you have the fountains and you have, and I think it's a great idea to immortalize and to give a sense of tribute and have a place for reflection. But anybody that, quite frankly, if you watch any of the footage, CBS, CNN, and you say, oh, well, that's all controlled media. Even the controlled media gets it right at times. But watching the footage, and there is actual legitimate footage of that day. And how could there not be? In a surveillance society, people with their cell phone cameras and everybody seems to have some way of taping, recording various things. And there happened to be a documentary and I believe this to be true. You can doubt it. You can say, that they just made that up. That came after the fact. I don't believe most average blue collar, salt of the earth firemen were involved in any kind of conspiracy. So I do believe that the Frenchmen that were trying to show how kind of a newbie, a young boy, really, they were calling them from boy to men, or boyhood to manhood, as it relates to the new firefighters, and I think that footage is legitimate, and it showed you so much of what they did. But when you see the human spirit, the courageous nature of the firemen in particular, which is really the first responders, the rescuers, which also included other agencies of first response, whether it be EMTs, whether it be the local police, and other rescue efforts from even the common citizen, Joe Q. citizen. But there were so many brave and heroic acts, such a courageous spirit in nature at that time, that it really was touching for me. I was really taken by that. Just like when I watch Undercover Boss, and you see the goodness in humanity. There's enough, maliciousness. There's enough malice. There's enough, heinous and vile and viciousness that is portrayed, and we know that exists. So again, in recap, I just want to give my thoughts and prayers to those that live on, the offspring, the husbands, the wives, the sons, the daughters, the grandchildren, those that have suffered at the hands of this heinous and unconscionable act that was perpetrated by multiple forces, in my view, and never given a true legitimate investigation. We need a true inquiry into these high crimes that were committed against humanity, but more importantly and more specifically against the United States of America and our citizenry. And I have to say, I'm a proud American when I've been able to revisit or witness what those courageous men and women in the New York City area did. And also, again, the despicable nature of government when they said, oh, it's safe, no problem. Yeah, you should use a respirator, some kind of mask on your face, but it's still safe. Now we know that there were so many harmful chemicals during this meltdown and incineration that more responders have died in the last 10 years from those causes, from those chemicals, than any other vicious acts that occurred on that day, or violent acts, I should say, based on what happened in terms of the collapse and the inferno, the incineration. So I'm very moved and very touched by all this, and I'm sure that many of you are. But if you're still a conspiracy junkie that wants to believe there were no planes, that most of these people didn't die, and that it was something... Oh, the other one is the UFO theory. Yeah, UFOs were used on this day too. So I don't have any time for the wacky and the weird. But anyway, it's a somber moment. It's a day of reflection, remembrance, and reverence. And may God bless America. May God bless you, the listener, and any and all that this broadcast touches. Check us out on the website, TomDonahueReports.com, TomDonahueReports.com. May God spread His mercy and His protection over America. Till we meet again, patriotism in action. Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports. Have a great day.